that people love to ask on online Eventbrite invites. Okay, welcome to today's session. We're going to be covering tables. The content for today comes from my book, Modern Data Analytics in Excel. I don't think I have quite this many copies around the house as on the screen right now, but I do have a copy with me right here. So the idea for today's session is we're just going to go through the first chapter of the book. I've never done this before. It's like a combination office hours tutorial, and we'll see how it goes. I'll send out the recording, and let me know if you have any questions. And then, of course, the goal would be go out and check out the book. You can get it a lot of places. If you don't want to buy a copy, that's okay. You can ask your library to get a copy. You can review it online on the publisher's website, get a free trial. So that's the basic goal for today. And the first thing that we're going to do is just make sure everybody has the downloads for today. So we are going to be using Excel. That's the first download. I'm on a 365. This is my usual disclaimer. I'm on a 365 version for PC. I'm on the desktop. If you don't have that, I'll try my best to help you. It's very hard when it's online, for like a free 1-hour session. There's only so much I can do. So if you don't see something, you're welcome to ask, but I might not be able to help. I do consulting. I do other ways to help people, but this is my offering, assuming that you're on 365 for PC. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is just open up this link. And I almost guarantee you somebody's going to come in later. The two questions that, like, my God, I wish we have AI now. Why can't AI tell people, is this meeting going to be recorded? We need a little chatbot in these Teams calls. Is this going to be recorded? Yes. Where are the download files? They're right here. So if somebody comes in, asks, where are the download files? I'm hereby deputizing you right now to copy and paste this link. I try to keep a good eagle eye view on the chat, but sometimes I miss stuff. So it'd really help me out if you did that. Okay, so we're over here in the GitHub repo. You don't need to be a GitHub expert to do this. This has all the exercise files and everything that any kind of Excel workbook or data set that's used in the book, it's right here. Okay, so a little hint here with GitHub, and what I can maybe even do is, let me put this in the chat, direct download. Some of you might have seen that, where it says code. If you just hit the drop down, there's a download zip button right there. So what that's going to do is just throw everything into a zip folder, so you don't have to go through like file by file and download everything. Okay, so that is the logistics. And again, if you have questions about that, let me know. We're going to go ahead and jump into, I've already downloaded it. Make sure that you extract things. I know some people aren't familiar with that, so make sure you extract that folder. And we're going to go into chapter 1. Okay, so my goal is to get through as much of chapter 1 as we can. There are some exercises at the end of the book that, depending on time, we might go through those together. And then if anybody does have any questions about the book, you can ask. I'm set to go for an hour, but that could vary. So we'll see how this goes. All right, so we're on chapter 1. We're talking all about tables today. And I call this chapter The Portal to Modern Excel. The book is called Modern Data Analytics in Excel. Okay, and tables are kind of like that first step to getting into modern data analytics. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is, this is pretty obvious, but we have our data here. It looks like there's sales related to like different departments of some kind of grocery store, something like that. All right. So I am going to create a table from this data. All right. There are a few ways to do this. If you have a different way you like to do, leave it in the chat or do it yourself. But I'm going to do Control and T. So you're going to put your mouse just anywhere in this data set where the main part of the data is. Okay. We'll call this like the body of the data, right? And what you're going to do is just do Control and T. If you're on a Mac, I believe it's Command and T. I could be wrong. I'm not a Mac expert. But we do not have headers right now, so we are going to leave that off. So the first thing you're going to see is that the way tables behave, it matters if your data has headers. It's not really a consideration when you're working in regular Excel with regular formula references, right? The difference between a header cell and a data cell is kind of only in your imagination. In tables, it's a real thing. Okay, so our table does not have headers. Let's go ahead and click that off. Okay. And you'll see that we have a table here. All right. Now, yours might be a little differently formatted than mine. We'll talk about that briefly in a second. But the first thing we're going to do is you notice how these say like column 1, column 2. Those aren't really great specific names. Okay. We want to be more exacting in what we call our data and what we call our variables. It's going to be really hard to refer to those later with these generic names. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is let's just cut and paste that, or copy and paste that, however you want to do, right? So we have customer ID, channel, region, fresh, whatever, etc. Okay. Hopefully that's making sense so far. Okay. So tables look cool. We're not going to do a lot with the design, but you'll see if you go up here, and you'll see when I click in and out of the table that there's a new tab on our ribbon that shows up. Okay. And this one's called table design. There's a lot of stuff on here. If you go over to the right, it's all about the formatting. We could make it that kind of banana yellow color. I'm not really a fan of that. We could define, do we want it to have banded columns or banded rows? So there's a lot of like formatting nicety, and I'm sure we all spend way more time than we care to admit just formatting our data in Excel to make it look nice. So that's already a big win that tables handle a lot of that stuff for you. This is not really a class on table formatting. We're really more concerned about analyzing the data that's contained in the tables. So let's go ahead and try that out with a couple of different things. I'm going to go ahead and insert a few rows here. All right, so one of the most important things to understand about a table is, how every story kind of has like a beginning, a middle, and an end, kind of. Every table has that too. So every table has headers. It has, I don't know, like I'll call it the body, and then it has footers. So it's really nice is we can actually refer to these really specifically in our formula references in a way that could be really hard if we were just dealing with kind of legacy Excel data sets. What do I mean by that? So we're going to start hitting the equal sign. We're going to, just kick off a formula like any other. Let's go ahead and just select those headers. So all I did there was just click and select, and you'll see that that refers to table 1 headers. Okay, I'm going to hit enter, and you'll see we dynamically get the array of the headers from here. So even if I were to add another one, right, like miscellaneous or something like that, you'll see that that gets added. So everything we're doing is dynamic. We're not really dealing with very complicated formulas. This is pretty much what you see is what you get. This is really nice if you're trying to build some kind of a dashboard or report where you want to know what are the columns in my table, what are the order that it's in, right? You want to build different pivot tables with pivot by and group by, lots of things you can do since you can dynamically refer to the column names, right, in the order that they appear in. Okay, and we could even, refer to that later. Refer to that more if I wanted to do something like the upper function, right, and pass that in. What's that going to do? Well, let's try that out. That's just going to refer to every header, uppercase, and we get that pretty easily, one formula. Again, if there are any questions, I don't see a lot going on in the chat, but if you do have something, please let me know. I did have everybody come on with their mics and their cameras disabled because that's caused issues in the past. But if you do, want to come off mic, just let me know, and I can disable that. But the chat's probably the best place to ask any questions. All right. Okay, so what we're going to do next is let's try to refer to the actual main part of the data here. So if I do that, you'll see this is just referring to table 1. I'll hit enter. You're going to see we do have an issue. Now we are using dynamic arrays right now, and you've probably heard of dynamic array functions. Okay, they utilize this feature that's in new modern Excel called dynamic arrays. The idea is that we are returning multiple values with one formula, okay, in multiple cells. So this single reference is spilling data, right, across all these cells. Now there's data already in here, right? So if you ever see the spill error, that's what's happening. Okay, dynamic arrays are great in the sense that they are dynamic. The issue with that is because they are dynamic, you could have things blocking, right, the results. You could have, you're expecting 20 rows, but actually you get 25. But 3 rows down or 8 rows down, you have something else, and then you get the spill error. So that's what the spill error is. let's go ahead and just, let's go over here. And I'm going to type that this time. Table 1, this does work with IntelliSense. Once you start typing, Excel's going to try to complete your thoughts. Hit tab, hit enter, and you'll see we're referring, again, just to that body of the data. So everything we're doing here is very specific in terms of, what are we referring to, right? What part of the data set are we referring to? We're not worrying about, the location in terms of like it's A7 through B17, nothing like that. This is a lot more programmatic, and it's going to be a lot more extensible and responsive when it comes time to adding columns, adding rows, or doing other things. Okay. For the N, for good measure, let's go ahead and do that. Now, by default, there's no footer row on here, but if we wanted to throw one on, let's go ahead, head to table design. We're going to add a total row right there. Now, by default, Excel's just going to add a sum of the last column. Not sure why. Easy enough to fix that. If you don't want that, we could change this. There's these little drop-down buttons. It's a little hard to see here. We'll try to make this a little bigger. Okay, so there's this drop-down button. And, if we wanted a count or an average or what have you, you can add those down there. So now we do have the beginning, middle, and the end. We have headers, we have the body, and we have the footers. And of course, if I wanted to, refer to this, go ahead and do that. And you will see, whoops, there we go. Okay, except I didn't get all of them yet. Okay, we have totals right there. That's not quite what I want. I think if I say, let's do this, table 1, because this is another option here, right? If I totals, now I get what I want. Okay, so there is a table in the book that goes through the specific like keywords to use for different parts of the table that you want. If you wanted to refer to everything here, what I would do is add these brackets. You're going to see these square brackets are used a lot. It's kind of a convenient thing because if you get into Python and Excel, when you work with data in Python and Excel, a lot of those elements of the data sets you're going to work with use these square brackets a lot as well. So this really does get you in a good habit of working with data the way many programming languages work with data. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that, and we'll see that everything is now run there. All right. Making sense so far? Any questions? All right, let's keep going. So table 1 is looking good. And again, we could format it if we wanted to. We could turn these totals off if we wanted. We could change the appearance if we wanted. But my biggest concern is that just the same as column 1, column 2, column 3 were pretty bad names. Table 1 is not a great name either. So let's fix that. I'm going to go to the formula name manager up here to do so. There are other ways to do this, just like there's often, multiple ways to do almost anything in Excel. Now I'm going to give you one way, but if you have another way, you're welcome to volunteer it or, do it the way that you want. Okay. So let's go to formulas and name manager, and under table 1, let's go ahead and just name this something makes more sense. I'm going to call this something like sales. If you want this to be, multiple words, you're going to have to use the underscore. So, maybe I want to call this like wholesale. I think the original data set is called wholesale customers. So I'm going to call it wholesale customers right now. I don't remember what I call it in the book. Let's click OK. And you'll see, okay, that's fine. All right. So everything just dynamically updates to wholesale customers. We don't have any references to table 1 anymore. This is definitely going to make more sense, as we start building out formulas and functions and so forth based on this table. Okay. So that's how you name it. We talked about formatting. Updating is really nice. So, one thing that we haven't done yet really is I looked briefly at adding columns here. If we wanted to do something like total sales, now I'm not suggesting this is the best way to calculate total sales. We're going to look at why, this kind of like nested format isn't a great way to work with our data. But just for the sake of argument, if we were to add something here, let's do sum, okay? And you'll see as we do that we're using this at notation. Now, what that at notation means is that it's just referring to the corresponding column for the row that you are calculating. So what we're saying here is we're taking the sum of wholesale customers, fresh through frozen. This is another kind of common programming jargon here. The colon just means everything from fresh through frozen. I mean, I guess that's in Excel all over too, right? Like A1 through B17 or whatever. So that's nothing new. So we're going to take the sum there. That's all that @ sign means. It's just the corresponding column for the row that you're in. You'll hit enter. You'll see that everything just instantly gets summed. So again, nice win there. You don't have to worry about dragging your formulas down, any of that stuff. Okay. Pretty cool there. Okay. Again, the totals here, if we wanted to add some rows, you'll see that all we have to do is just, insert them and add them. And okay, that's not a good example because that's not a number, but you'll see that, anything we do here, the totals are going to update. Okay. And if we wanted to, spreadsheet's getting a little busy. Let me delete this. Okay. So if we wanted to find something like, total fresh sales, average grocery sales. So this is going to work pretty similarly. Now we're going to be working in this programmatic-esque language here. If I take sum, I can either highlight my data. It gets a little tricky when there's a subtotal down here because we probably don't want to include the total row. So what we might do instead is just take, because right now this is saying data, totals, fresh. We don't need the totals. All we really need is fresh. I wish it were a little easier to refer to a column with a total at the end. I don't know of a better way. If you do, let me know. But what I'm doing right here again is instead of referring to A1 through AB17, because as we all know, what happens if AB8 or A319 gets added or whatever? It's really easy for stuff like this to break. Same idea here with pivot tables. We'll get to that in a second too. But average, you'll get the sense here, right? Wholesale customers. I don't know why I was referring to table 1. That's definitely okay. We weren't referring to table 1. Let's do average. Okay. Wholesale customers. Okay. And then hit that bracket. You'll see here all the different columns, right? Then you'll see there the different elements. It's probably really hard to see on my screen, but there they are. We were looking for grocery sales. Let's double click that, close the brackets, close parentheses, and we get that number there. Okay. Same idea with pivot tables, insert pivot table. You want to make sure that you are referring to this entire table, right? What this is going to do is if for whatever reason this table moves, you add columns, you add rows, that it's all going to be picked up dynamically. So you don't have to worry so much about, oh, I updated my data set. When I refresh it, is it going to include all the relevant data, right? That gets taken care of for you. All right. Any questions, let me know. Quiet group, so I'm assuming this is all going down like butter, hopefully, and you'll buy a book because of that. All right, let's cancel. And what are we going to do now? We're going to get into, okay, Jack's saying too fast. There is the book as well, so if you want to look at that, this is being recorded. You can take a look at the book too, if you're having trouble following along. All right, but I will take that in mind. All right, so cool, excellent. All right, okay, so we're going to look at how does this tie into modern Excel and how does this tie particularly into Power Query. All right, so we're not going to do a lot with Power Query today, but we are going to see that tables are a great way into this tool that makes up the rest of part 1 of the book. All right. So if you're not familiar, I'll probably do some more lessons. If this goes well, I am going to give a feedback link at the end. So, if you want to see more of these, it would be great to know what you want to know about. And it would be great to get like a review so that I can share with clients and other people to attend, right? So that these are kind of like a win-win situation. I'll share that at the end. But, assuming that these go well, we'll do some stuff on Power Query, which is an ETL tool. Okay, what does that mean? It means extract, transform, and load. All right, so let's think of some examples of something that you might do like this already, right? So if you take data from a database, right, you select X, Y, and Z columns, right? Maybe you even merge tables A and B. Gets a little more advanced there, right? And then you dump this into Excel. All right. So that's really, that's what ETL is. And ETL can take up a lot of time, right? So there's your E, there's your T, and there's your L. Okay, that's also a T. ETL can take up a lot of time, especially in Excel, where back in the olden days, it could be kind of hard to get data from one place and bring it into the table, bring it into Excel. So the idea here is that this is all going to be automated now. We're almost going to build our own like data cleaning pipeline. And this also includes things that you might build from Excel. You don't have to be going out to a database. This could be data that exists in your workbook already, right? We probably all have those reports where Monday morning rolls around and you got to hide this column and add this cell over here, and you got to VLOOKUP data from here into there, and something breaks, and then the rest of the day you're just cleaning that up, or like you have to give it to somebody because you're on vacation, and then you got a phone call because you're on vacation, somebody can't figure it out, like all that stuff. No, you're not doing it anymore. Okay, you're gonna use Power Query. It's going to take care of that for you. So that's what we're doing right now. We're going to start with the basics here. And we're going to build a little report based on, let's say this data comes in from like the sales system every week, right? And all we want to know is what total sales are by region, okay? So this is our goal. Let me clean some of this stuff up. If this is making sense, let me know. If I am getting too carried away, going too fast, let me know. But our goal is to find total sales by region. Okay. We don't need this stuff anymore. All right. So we don't want to build this in. We could use a pivot table. Let's say that. We could use a pivot table and just try it that way and not clean this data. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to insert my pivot table. It isn't a table, so that is going to save us time for if this table gets changed in any way. Okay. Let's go ahead and add this to over here. Let's click OK. All right. And we are going, what was my goal here? Total sales by region. Okay, so we do have total sales here. I'm going to make this a region. Okay, region is not a number, it's a category. So we'll just bring it over here. Okay. If you need help with that, there are some resources on pivot tables. I'm not going to get too much into like how to use a pivot table, kind of assuming you're familiar with these. But we just build it. Okay. And this looks pretty good. Okay, we could definitely format. I haven't been great on like formatting these numbers, but we could do that. We could filter out. I don't really know why there's a blank. Oh, I think it's because if we control down here, I added these like extra things. Okay, that's fine. So let's just make sure these numbers foot. This is another nice reason to have these subtotals, right? So again, hit the little drop down, and then you can get the number that we want. Let's control home there. Okay, total sales. It looks like it might actually be including. Okay, no, we're good now. So everything foots, right? We're seeing 1013, 1013. Okay, good. All right, so that's fine. Now the issue comes in with the like overall maintainability of this report. So what do I mean by that? Well, these categories might change. Okay, what if somebody decides like, oh, hey, there's a new category, right? There's a new category, and they put the numbers in here, and this is not tied to that. Right, that could be a rude awakening when you're trying to build this thing and just get it out before launch or something. Okay, so the issue with kind of aggregating data in your table is this data should be like as granular and atomic as possible. We really shouldn't be trying to like, this is almost like analyzing the data in the table, right? Your raw data should be as pristine and untouched as possible, and it should be really easy to set something up like this so that we can just quickly sum up the sales, right? There should really just be a table called sales, if you can imagine that. Okay, so rather than, right, there's new category region, let me get rid of that one. This is kind of a, like, it's hard to understand and explain it here and say, but I almost guarantee you've seen this in your own work where you're trying to get, like, let's delete this and see what happens here, because now we know that that's not a great way to do that. Let's refresh this. Okay. So now we're saying like, okay, well, I don't see a sales column, right? How am I going to get total sales? We already know that trying to like aggregate up fresh grocery and frozen on the fly isn't the best way to do it. How are we going to do this? Okay. This is where cleaning our data with Power Query comes in handy. We're going to do something that everybody loves. Once you learn Power Query, I think there's even some fellow MVPs started like a show named Unpivot. Okay. We're going to do the legendary Unpivot right now. Okay. Any questions about this? I think if it's not quite clicking, that seeing this, what we're trying to do in action, organizing this data in the right manner, so this is easy for us to analyze, will make sense once we actually do it in Power Query. This is really important too. I'm also going to add like, if you're interested in using AI, Copilot, ChatGPT, which you probably should be, having your data in this unnested format. Microsoft even suggests in its documentation that like to get the best use out of Copilot, you want your data in what's called an unnested or an unpivoted format. This would be called a pivoted or nested format. The idea is that we've got sales kind of sprayed across multiple columns, when really what we want to do is pivot this thing so that we have one column called department, we have one column called sales. That's going to make it a lot easier for us, for AI, for whoever is working on our data to understand that, these are all sales. Okay. We're comparing sales across categories. These are not, different units of measurement. This is the same unit of measurement. Therefore, in general, the same unit of measurement should be in the same column when we want our data to be in a machine readable kind of format. All right. That was a lot of talking. Let's get back into Excel here. Okay. So tables are the portal into modern Excel. Let's see how that works. We're going to go to data. Okay. We're going to get data. Okay. Question from Fred. Are there some data sets? What's the average time? Well, that's why you check out the book. I have plenty of data sets. Yes, thank you. So maybe somebody's asking about the resources. How long does it take? It's like, how long does it take to learn the violin? You could probably play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star after a day or two. If you want to turn into, a virtuoso, it'll take your whole life. So it's just same question like with Power Query. Okay, and some data sets. I think part one of the book is probably the equivalent of like you can now play in your high school orchestra if you get through the stuff in our book. Okay. All right. So let's go into Power Query. Data, get data. Okay. So you're seeing here, this is our portal into Power Query. It's not very well labeled. I always think of like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe here, that you just kind of stumble into this new fantasy world. You didn't really know that that was what was here. Okay. You'll see that there are data sources from all sorts of places. All right. You can go out to Azure, you can go to databases, Power Platform, what have you. We're just going to bring data in from our simple tables. Okay, so we've got data here. We're going to refresh this. We're going to unnest it. We're going to unpivot it. That's going to put it in a better position to do more advanced analysis with. All right. So let's go to table/range. Again, any other questions, please do ask them. Happy to get to them when I can. Okay, so here is our data. All right, now like we talked about, if you've never been in Power Query before, just a heads up, this is a different editor. It's almost like an add-in, okay? You generally can't access your main Excel workbook from here. There's some shortcuts to that, but you're kind of in your own world right now. All right. We're not going to do a lot with this. Again, if there's demand and makes sense to do, I'll do some more sessions on Power Query. But what we're going to do right now is, okay, what we're going to do right now is we want to unpivot these three columns. All right. So there are a few ways to do this. Now, this is one that, make sure that if you're kind of drifting off because it's already been a half an hour of this, make sure that you follow this. Okay. So we have customer ID. By default, it's probably selected on your column. Okay. Hold down control. Hold down. Oops. You don't want to drag it like that. Hold on region. Okay. You want this to look like that. Let me do that again. Click on customer ID. Hold down control. Click channel. Hit region. Okay. we have these three grouped. Okay. And now what we're going to do is right click on pivot other columns. All right. I'm going to even put this in the chat. So click customer ID, hold down, control, click channel, click region, right click on or what was it? The next column, forget what the next column was called. What was the next column called? Fresh. Okay. Fresh column on pivot other columns. All right. Hopefully everybody's able to do that. Do it again if I need to. May as well just do it again. Okay. Click customer ID, hold on control, hold on region, right click on pivot other columns. Now we have what we want. By default, these are called attribute and value. I'm going to change this to something like department. Okay, and let's change this to something like sales. Cool. All right. So this is our nested format. Awesome. So we just extracted data from the workbook. We transformed it, namely we unnested it. Now we're going to load it, which is over here. Close and load. Let's hit this floppy disk. I don't know if there's anybody in this audience who doesn't know what that is, but I am fairly old enough to know what that is, and I'm getting kind of old. Let's click close and load. And we have our table loaded. We have our department. We have our sales. Okay. Now, what's nice about this, let's insert our pivot table. Let's just put it over here. Click OK. And we have sales. Beautiful. We can slice and dice that by region. Can slice and dice it by channel. I'm not sure why they're still. Let's try refreshing this. Okay. Well, it looks like maybe there's something. Did I add data here? I don't really know why we're still getting excess data. We might need to like rebuild or refresh something, but just gonna leave it as is for right now. Okay. But you're seeing that, the main point here is we have sales, we have a clear sales variable. Excel knows these are all sales, right? We're not kind of arbitrary, and it's not arbitrary, but it's really hard for you as the analyst or Excel or Copilot as the computer to understand, yes, these are all sales. These should be aggregated. When you're keeping them in different variables, it's the assumption is like analyze all of these kind of separately as separate variables when they're not. Okay. All right. Any questions about that? Okay. So that is all the content that I had planned for today. Now, if you want to stick around, I think what we're going to do, okay, question, what would happen if new columns were added? Yeah, so if we added new category or something like that. Okay, so I'm going back. The question is, what happens if, new data gets added? I'm going to go ahead and let me just turn off this total. Okay. Control C. Okay, I'm just creating a new one from scratch. All right, so let's go back into Power Query. I'm going to edit my query. Okay, let's refresh our data. Okay, so new category is here. Okay. Now what we just did is unpivoted. That's one of the biggest reasons to unpivot other columns is because now this is implicitly assuming that if any other column gets added to this data set, right, I want it unpivoted as well. Okay, so it seems kind of weird to do it like that, opposite way, but that's really one of the biggest reasons to do that because now we have new category right here. Okay, and now we can go ahead and load that back in. Okay, we might need to refresh this. Okay, still not sure why we have blank values here, but I'll leave it be for right now. All right. So like I was saying, that's the gist of chapter one. Okay. Um, so that is all the content we're going to get through today. Since we do have extra time, I think what we can do is go through the exercises. I'll give you some time to work on those on your own. And then I will go through the solutions. So if you want to stick around for that, that's great. If you don't, again, this is going to be recorded. Let me just plug a couple things here. So if you're interested in the book, you can, I mean, it's 2024. It's pretty easy to find information about a book. People still ask, right? This is my website. I'll send this out in the email that goes out with the recording too. Okay, so that's the book. All right. If you want to get a copy, that would be great. As you're on my website, you'll see I offer all sorts of services. I do training, consulting, right? This is my life, kind of. I do a lot with data analytics, Excel, helping people get the most out of Excel so that they're not spending their time on fruitless things, so that their company is not spending money on software that they don't really need. Getting workforces ready for things like AI and data analytics, and becoming citizen data scientists, citizen developers in Excel. So if that's the kind of thing that you have your mind on, please check out my website. You'll see all the stuff that I do. The other thing that I want to bring up, and again, don't worry about writing all this down necessarily because I'll email it, is we'd be really, really grateful. I'd be grateful if you could leave just some short feedback. This helps me in different ways. Make sure I know that these are things that people are looking for. Let me know if I could do things better, what else you'd like to see. If this was too fast, for example, let me know, and I'll try to do better next time. If you want to see other stuff, that would be great. If you have specific things that you'd like to share, please do give me some feedback. Much appreciated. All right. Or you can just, email me. You can follow me on LinkedIn. If you really found a lot of benefit from this, you can just email me. Let me know what you liked. And those kinds of, this kind of data is really useful for letting others know about my services and making sure that, I'm delivering good material to those who sign up. Okay. Cool. All right. So looks like a few people stayed on. Awesome. Okay. So let's go ahead and go through that together. All right. So I'm still in the resources. Let me just quickly share the downloads again if anybody came in late. Okay. Oops. Okay, I'm almost there. Sorry for the delay. Okay. Copy link. Okay, so the downloads are here. Okay. We're gonna go to the exercises. Now, like I said, every chapter ends with some exercises. A lot of books skip that, and I think that's terrible. Exercises do, as an author, take a lot of time, but it's really important because it's like anything, right? Use it or lose it. You have to do it yourself. You have to get your hands on the keyboard, right? You're not gonna become an athlete by watching sports, right? So you're not gonna become an Excel analyst by watching somebody use Excel. You have to do it yourself. All right. So that's what the exercises are for. A lot of books don't have them, which I find a travesty. Okay, but mine do. So we're gonna make advantage of that and do these exercises. Now, I don't know if you'll have time to get through all of them. Okay. So what I think I'll do is I'll give everybody like 5 or 10 minutes, still work through them. Okay. If you don't have enough time to go through them, that's fine. I'll go through them when we get back. Let me open the slide deck here. I'll leave this on the screen so you know what you're supposed to be doing. I'll make sure everybody knows where to get these files to. All right. Okay, so okay, that's probably big enough. If it's not big enough, you can always get a copy on your own. I can also put this in the chat. So hopefully all those ways. Oh, that did not render well. Okay, paste this plain text. Okay, that's a little better. Still kind of hard. All right, so let me go back to the resources here. Okay, so if you go to the main repo for the book, there is a standalone exercises subfolder. If you go into that, there are exercises for each chapter. Okay. And we're on chapter 1 exercises. So this is a pretty well-known penguins data set. It needs some attention in terms of getting it into a table and doing some basic operations on it. Those operations are right here. Okay. So try that out for yourself. I'm going to give everybody, like, I don't know. I don't want to have anybody drift off into orbit too long. So let's say like 7 minutes. Okay. And that should give me enough time to take any final questions and probably go through it all myself too. Again, I don't want to go too fast though. So we'll see how that goes. Again, if you don't get through this and I don't get through it, you can check out the book, or maybe I'll do another one of these too, because it got a pretty good number of signups. I think we had like 100, so it's pretty good. And yeah, and let me know what else you want to see. All right, so I'm gonna run this, and again, I'll be like in and out. I'll try to keep an eye on the chat. I might get up for a second, but yeah, take some time, work on this. We'll go through it real quick, and then we'll close. So thanks again for attending. If I haven't said that already, I do really appreciate it. Hope you're learning a lot of stuff today. And thanks so much for your support. Let's roll this, and then we'll come back and close. Thank you. Okay. Welcome back. Hope you had some good time there to at least take a earnest pass through these. We have about 10 minutes to go, so what I'm gonna do is open this up, go through these in the amount of time we have. And then all the links that I shared earlier, the recording and all that stuff will go out shortly, like basically right after we stop here. Okay. I think I opened or closed too many things down. Okay, we're on chapter 1 exercises. Okay. The first step, question about how I set the timer. I'm on a PC and I just use the clock app. So I just search for clock and I get that. Yeah, perfect. All right. Okay. First step, convert the data into a table named penguins. All right. I might do this differently this time, just so you see a different way of doing it. Okay, so I'm still going to put my mouse anywhere in this data set. We already have headers, so that's nice. I'm going to do Control and L this time. This is another keyboard shortcut. This harkens back to when Excel tables were called lists, I believe. I'm not positive with that. The nice thing is good to know that this one is available too, because if you're using Excel on the web, Control T on most browsers means open like a new tab. So Control T isn't going to work. It gets overruled. So Control L is an alternative. Okay. And that will let you add your table here. My table has headers. All right. Now, by default, your table again is going to be named table 1, and that's just a sequential name, right? Like if I added another table, it'd be table 2, et cetera, et cetera. All right. If we wanted to rename this to penguins, I showed you to go up to Formula Name Manager. But there's also this option here under table design called table name. You can actually just rename it right here. I find this to be, I don't know, for some reason, I have problems with it sometimes. Sometimes it only names like part of the table, or I just find it a little unreliable for some reason. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. But there is a way to name it penguins right here. Hit enter. Okay. And honestly, I would suggest that you go to name manager anyway. The keyboard shortcut for this one is Control and F3. I would suggest you go to the name manager anyway and make sure you know that it was named right. So it's like you're going into the name manager anyway. I don't know. Can just go there. Okay, so that just named the table. Fair enough. Okay, the second question is use the formula reference. So what we're going to do is try to capitalize everything. Okay, so we're going to use the upper function. And we're going to refer to just the headers again. You know, every table has a beginner, middle, and end. It has a header, it has a body, and it has a footer. We just want to capitalize those headers. Control. Okay. I'll go ahead and put that in the chat. And again, we know that this is now a dynamic array. Okay. So if escape, right, if I were to insert or delete any columns, right, this is all going to update accordingly. This can expand and contract to as many headers as I have. Pretty nice. Okay, so that's that one. Let's go ahead and delete that. Next question. Good on time. Next question, we're going to create a build ratio. We're going to divide build length by build depth. Okay, build ratio. So you'll see that that table gets automatically expanded equals. Now, what I would suggest when you're creating these calculated columns is to actually use your mouse. I find it a little more reliable for some reason than like clicking on these. You want to make sure you have the @ sign and you're not actually using the formula notation. Okay, that means we're actually using the structured formula reference. Okay, and for whatever reason, I just find using the arrows a little easier to do that. So we're going to take our build length. We're going to divide it by our build depth. Again, those @ signs are just like the corresponding value in this column. All right. So you'll see we do have some errors. So we could throw in an if error here, handle that in different ways, but we're not going to get into that right now. We talk more about how to handle missing values Power Query. Okay, that's the third one. Okay, total row. Again, that's up here under table design. We could turn that on and off. And again, just the last column, for whatever reason, is summed, right? This one really doesn't make much sense to sum. Maybe like an average would be better, but we want to find the average body mass. Okay, we are getting a divide by zero there because there's some divide by zeros in the data. So we could fix that. Average body mass. Okay, so again, make sure you click on average. And again, you can turn this on and off as desired. Last but not least is just formatting, right? Remove banded rows. You could turn that off, give it a little more streamlined of a look. You could make your own table style, period, right? Like if you have company logos or not company logos, company colors, palettes, things like that that you wanted to do, you could set up your own table style, and that is under table design, table styles, and new table styles. There are a lot of options. I've always had trouble getting it looking exactly right. I feel like all these options, out of all of them, you probably will find something that you will like. And the other option here is just to go to page layout, change the theme of your workbook, and that gives you other options. Like I'm on the old Office theme right now. So if I change this to the new Office theme, it'll look a little different still. All right, and then again, that was under page layout and themes, table design, and you'll see these different options. Some of them are a little busy. I don't know if anybody wants to read that. Okay, I'm gonna turn that off before I blind anybody. All right. Any questions about any of that? So pretty much at time. Really appreciate everybody's attention. I'm gonna send out like right after this the recording, the links to that review page. I've also got some other stuff coming up on Eventbrite, some free and paid workshops. So please take a look at those. And again, if I can help you and your team out in any way, whether it's looking at your workbooks, figuring out better workflows, doing training in Power Query, or we didn't talk about stuff like AI or Copilot, but I do a lot of that too. Just let me know how I can help. I'll set this email up. You can just respond to that and let me know. So with that, I'll let everybody go. Thanks again. And I hope this is a good use of your time. I know it's not easy often to take off an hour during the middle of the work week to learn something new. So applause to you for that. And hope to see you at another one of these. I think that's it. So I'm going to close out the room, and you can expect an email from me shortly. Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care.